Hiya, I'm Mark and I'm one of the learning facilitators here at the Life Rooms, and this is another staying well, staying home, wellbeing video. And in today's video we're going to be looking at challenging unhelpful thoughts. So you might remember in one of our recent videos Tom spoke about anxiety and he spoke about the vicious circle, and part of that video he spoke about challenging unhelpful thoughts. Well, I'd like to explore this concept a little bit further today in this video. For me, challenging unhelpful thoughts is key to me managing my anxiety. I really like to challenge me negative thoughts. I like to reframe them thoughts, and although it's difficult, I try to find some positivity within those negative thoughts. I like to call it playing detective. So what I want you to do is, metaphorically, I want you to take your deerstalker hats and put them on, take your magnifying glasses, and let's start looking at the bigger picture when we're looking at our challenging, unhelpful thoughts. So to start off with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you a little story, but I'm going to give you one instruction. Don't listen to what I'm reading. If you're stuck in a jam or a tight fix, who will be there in just 2 ticks? Captain Cool, we shout, that's who. You should see what he can do. His rocket shoes can outrun a train. His power suit takes him higher than a plane. His infrared eyes can see in the dark, and with his bulging arms, he swims like a shark. I'm going to leave that there for now. I'm going to ask you a question. Did you listen to what I was reading? If so, why did you listen? Because the instruction was, don't listen to what I'm about to read. Now, some of you may have tried not to listen, but the odd villain or superhero or infrared eyes might have snuck in there. Now, for me, this is a good way of how we explain our thought process. We actually have, they say, 70,000 plus thoughts a day. Now, we don't choose the thoughts, they just get put into our head. So similar to you didn't choose me reading this book to you, I just planted them thoughts into your head. And some of you may have been trying not to listen, but that's like when we have negative thoughts. We try not to listen to our negative thoughts, but they still get a hold of us. And by me saying don't listen, that's like someone saying to you, don't worry about your negative thoughts. It's easier said than done, isn't it? We haven't all just got a switch that we can switch and stop thinking negatively. But with time and practice, I think that we can manage these negative thoughts a lot better. And I do that by trying to look at the bigger picture. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to show you the picture. And I'm going to show you the picture for 30 seconds. And I'm going to give you just one instruction. And that instruction is, don't think of a white polar bear. So you've got 30 seconds, but I don't want you to think of a white polar bear. Now, you might try reframing this picture, looking at the bigger picture, thinking of that concept. You might start focusing on something new. We're about halfway through now, so hopefully you're not thinking of a white polar bear. That's all you've got to do, not think of a white polar bear. And we're about to come to the end now, so hopefully you've stopped thinking of a white polar bear. Okay. Did you think of a white polar bear? I'm guessing you probably did, because it's a bit hard not to when someone's keep on saying white polar bear. But what I'm hoping some of you may have started doing is looking at the bigger picture, starting to reframe that picture maybe. So you may have looked at the polar bear and you may have started to think of a black polar bear maybe. You may have started focusing on the polar bear's nose, or you may have even been focusing on the sea or the iceberg that the polar bear's sitting on. And if you did start doing that with the picture, if you did start looking at the bigger picture and reframing your thoughts around the picture, that's really good. And now what we want you to do is we want you to start doing that with your thoughts and your negative thoughts. We want you to start playing detective. So for me, when playing detective with negative thoughts, I think one of the first things that I like to do is I like to label that negative thought. So categorising them basically. And there's quite a few types of negative thoughts. So do you catastrophise? Do you think of the worst possible situation and you think that's going to happen? Do you predict the future? Do you say things like, what if this happens and what if that happens? Do you mind read? Do you think that you know what people think about you without any real evidence? Or do you say things like, I should have done this and I should have done that? They're all different types of negative thinking, and I think by categorising them, by labelling them, they're a lot easier to then let go of. I think what we tend to see is we start to then see a pattern with our negative thinking. So you might say to yourself, I what if a lot, or I catastrophise a lot. And as I say, that then makes it easier to let go of that negative thought. And I think that's something that we need to do. Again, it's easier said than done, but try to let go of them negative thoughts. Negative thoughts, they're like bullies, and they want that attention. So by not giving them the attention, you're actually standing up to that bully. You're saying to them, you're not getting a hold of me. So I think that's really important. Now, every good detective, they like to ask questions, don't they? So Sherlock Holmes, he'll ask his suspects and his witnesses a load of questions. So let's start doing that with our negative thoughts. So the first question that I'd probably ask me negative thoughts is, where's my evidence for this thinking? So if I think Joe Bloggs doesn't like me, where's my evidence for that? Has Joe Bloggs ever told me that he doesn't like me? No, he hasn't. So why am I mind reading what Joe Bloggs thinks of me? Another question you might have ask your negative thoughts is, if it was one of your friends and they came to you with these negative thoughts, what advice would you give them? Sometimes we're really good at helping other people with things that they've got going on. So start giving yourself the advice that you'd give friends. Another question that I'd ask myself is, what time frame am I going to be worrying over this negative thought? You know, sometimes we worry about things that in a few months won't matter, in a few weeks won't matter, or even in a few days won't matter. I know myself in the past, I've worried about things that aren't going to matter in 2 or 3 days. So why do I spend so much time and effort worrying about these situations happening? One thing that I try to do is that I use visualization. So I picture my negative thoughts of being leaves. Now, I said earlier on that we have 70,000 plus thoughts a day. So that reminds me of the autumn, and when the leaves all fall off the trees, and we end up with thousands of leaves on the floor. Now, we don't pick one of them leaves up and we don't cling to that leaf all day like we do with our negative thoughts. So what I try to do once I've gone through the process of being detective with my thoughts, once I've stood up to them, once I've challenged them, I visualise myself taking a leaf and putting that leaf on a stream. And what happens when you put a leaf on a stream? It flows away. So it flows away with all them other 70,000 thoughts a day. So they're just a few ideas that I've got around challenging unhelpful thoughts. So taking into account everything that we've discussed, let's play detective with some of the current negative thoughts you might be having. You might be thinking now, I'm stranded at home and I'm not getting to see my family and my friends. And you're right, there is a difficult situation that. But how we could reframe that is we could say, by staying at home, by self-isolating, there's actually less chance of us becoming unwell. And you can still stay in touch with your family. You can use technology to stay in touch with your family. So that's one way of reframing that negative thought. Another thing you might be thinking is, I could become ill myself. Again, let's try and look at the bigger picture with that thought. Let's not just focus on the polar bear. Let's look at that big picture. So by staying at home, by following all the health and guidance, you've got less chance of becoming unwell. By washing your hands regularly and following all that guidance, there's less chance of you actually becoming unwell. Another thought that you might be having is that you might be thinking, everywhere's closed down and I'm going to run out of supplies. So what you're doing there is you're catastrophizing, aren't you? Let's look at the bigger picture again. We've been told the supermarkets are going to stay open. Supermarkets are doing really good jobs, making sure that people have got enough food. We're not running out of supplies of food. Chemists are still open. Doctors are still open. So we may catastrophize initially, but let's look at that bigger picture. And another negative thought you might be thinking is, there's too much uncertainty going on in the world. And yeah, again, you're right, but let's look at that bigger picture. There is too much uncertainty in the world at the moment, but we've got no control over that, have we? We can't control the situation that's going on throughout the world. However, what we can control is our own environment. So we can take control of our own environment. We can do all the things that have been suggested in our other videos about looking after our well-being whilst at home, and we can follow all the guidelines. So as a detective, let's challenge those negative thoughts. Let's reframe them into more positive thoughts. Let's take advantage of the situation that we're currently in. Let's do those things that we've been putting off at home. And once we do that, we've cracked the case.